everybody to Unidos online. I hope you're doing great. Okay, amigos. Today we'll have two guys that are really working hard for the last 2 years to get almost 2 years together. One is Carlos and David. Can you guys please introduce yourselves? Let's start with Carlos.
Hey, I'm Carlos from the Stoneboat Studio. I'm producer at the Stoneboat Studio, and I've been working on the last 3 years in the game, and for the last 2 years together with Skystone and David.
Okay, David, can you please introduce yourself?
Hi, my name's David Brevik, and I've been in the video game industry for 30 years now. I'm most well known for creating Diablo and Diablo 2, and I've made a lot of different products. And a few years ago, I started Skystone, which is a publishing company, and we've connected with Carlos and Stonebot Studios in the group to publish The Last Friend, which we're really excited about, and we've been working together for a couple of years now.
Awesome. Now you're talking about The Last Friend. David, can you briefly tell us why Skystone, as a new publisher, decided to work with The Last Friend and the Stonebot Studio?
Well, I think that our one of our missions with Skystone was to kind of search the the globe for talent, and traditionally publishers only looked kind of in their backyard, but I think that's kind of a naive way to look at things. And so I was really excited to go out and explore and find different voices out in the world that allowed people to express themselves in video games in ways that we don't necessarily get when we're just looking here in the U.S. or close by. So I thought that it was, that was one of our primary missions, which we succeeded in doing. We've got titles from all over the world that we're publishing, which is exciting. But I think that what drew me the most to The Last Friend was just I'm a huge fan of dogs.
So that's what.
Dogs are cool, so I wanted to play a game with a lot of dogs in it. So that's I think that was the one of the things. Plus, in general, I really love tower defense, and the mix between tower defense and beat 'em up. I thought it was really kind of an original twist and something unique, and that really drew me to the game at first. And then when we all played it in kind of a demo form early, we all had just very positive things to say, and so that was really what led us there. Is once we had seen the title and played the title, we knew that that this was going to be a good fit.
Okay, awesome. And David, talking about, well, you are a game designer and you have designed very famous games that everybody has played. I played them when I was a kid. And what are the biggest challenges that a game designer must face when designing a game? And if you can talk a little bit about the challenges that both you, David, and Carlos faced when redesigning a little bit The Last Friend.
Well, there's a long answer to that because I'll kind of break it up into a couple questions here. I think that the first thing is that, I mean, designing a game is actually, it's a lot more difficult than people think. I often get the general person stopping by on the street or whatever and saying, "Hey, I've got this great game idea." Then they proceed to tell me, basically, it's "Hey, here's my movie story," is really what people are very confused about what game design is. I think that story can be very important, can be very helpful, and definitely there are very story driven games. But that does, a good story does not mean you're a game designer. So I think that for me, the biggest thing for a game designer, the biggest challenge for a game designer, I would say, is their ego. I think that a lot of game designers think that they know what's right and that their precious vision of the game is the only way it can be done. I know the best, what is good for everyone, kind of thing. And so setting that aside and saying you don't know everything and you should listen, and you should listen to your audience, and you should listen to your peers, is vitally important. I've got a little bit of, we're going to break into story time here, but I've got a little bit of a story about Diablo. Originally, Diablo was turn-based. The actual original design document, by the way, for Diablo is available on my website, the graybeardgames.com. But you can download the PDF and see the actual original pitch for the game. But the original pitch for Diablo 1 was turn-based. And it was because it was based on a lot of these games that I had played in college in the 80s and where you had no graphics. The graphics were literally like, the walls were I guess they call those hashtags now. And you were like the @ symbol, and you were attacking the letter K was a kobold or something like that. I mean, it was just like letters on the screen that that made up the dungeons. They had all these games. The first one I played was called Rogue, and that's where the term roguelike comes from. And they had these games or whatever, and they were all turn-based. And so I wanted to make, when we designed Diablo, I wanted to kind of take those old-style Rogue games, and I wanted to make them modern. Was really kind of the premise behind the game. And so it was turn-based. And then we were about 6 months into development or so. Blizzard was made up of 2 parts, one part up in Northern California, one part down in Southern California. Blizzard North and Blizzard South. The Blizzard North team did the Diablo games. Blizzard South did like the Warcraft and Starcraft games. And the South team called us up and said, hey, what if we turn this into a real-time game instead of turn-based? And I was like, no, this is that's a bad idea. You're going to lose all the strategy of doing of changing it. If we change it to real time, you lose all the depth. One of the cool parts of doing these roguelikes was that you took these turns, you didn't know what was going to happen. So you had worked on your character. It was permadeath. So if your character died, it was deleted off the server. You had no access to the saving it or anything like that. And you'd work on your character for a couple of weeks, and you get down and you get yourself into a pickle. And it was like, okay, now I don't even know what to do. I've worked on this character for 2 weeks. I only have a little bit of health. There's a monster right next to me. I don't have anything in my inventory that I can do. Like, what is my strategy here? You could take this time to kind of think about, well, really kind of learn to accept that you're about to die here and lose 2 weeks of character development. But it was, I didn't want to lose that kind of feeling. And so I talked about it with other people in the office, and everybody else was like, yeah, real time. Yes, that is absolutely, we should give that a try. And I was resistant. I was like, no. And then eventually we got into we came to a vote. I decided to be democratic about it. We all got together in the kitchen of the office, and we voted, and there were a few holdouts, but largely we were overwhelmed by the yes, let's change it to real time. So I said, okay, we'll change it to real time, and that's really kind of the story of the change of Diablo from turn-based to real time. And
so a good take from this would be like leaving all your previous experiences on something, leave them behind, and try to really listen to people.
Right, exactly. And it was the change for the better. Like the moment that so we sent everybody home, and I said, okay, I'm gonna code this. I'm gonna see what it's like. It's probably gonna take me a few weeks to make it happen. Everybody go home. This is on like a Friday, and I sent everybody home. And that Friday evening, actually, I got it working. And by the time everybody came in on Monday, I could show it off. And like the moment that I pressed it, like that, I can remember it like it was yesterday. I was this character with this mace, and I came over and I like clicked on a skeleton. I walked over there and I bashed it, and I was like, "Oh, oh my god, this is so much better than turn-based." Never mind, I was completely wrong.
So
So
that moment you realize that you were wrong, right?
right,
When you
exactly, and that maybe I should be more open to other ideas rather than just myself. And I think it's really helped me throughout my entire career to be able to realize that just because I like something some way doesn't mean that it's really popular amongst everybody nor the right answer.
so
And so
David,
it's
so could
important.
be a second take here. So it will be listen and then try it out.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And
Okay.
so there you go. I think that's the most important thing for a game designer to be able to put that aside, put their ego aside and say, hey, this, I'm listening. Let's try stuff out. That's a good change, that kind of stuff. And also, I think that it's more than that, though, because a lot of times people will also complain about things in a game, and you got to listen to not only what they're complaining about, but think about why they're complaining about that. Like there may be some kind of thing that I don't know. People always complain about they don't have enough bank space in my games or whatever, that they like there just isn't enough storage space. But I do that on purpose. But then at the same time, there's got to be this balance. Like, well, maybe I made it too small. So there's all these kind of things that you have to kind of like evaluate all the time. And I think that's really important for you to kind of be objective about it. Put yourself in the shoes of the game player, and let your ego go and say, hey, what is this like for the way other players are playing it?
Nice. Okay. And really, you have to be really open-minded because,
Yeah.
I mean, we as humans don't like it when somebody calls our mistakes.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Okay. Now, what about working on the last run? On the last run, well, we all as a team, we had to go through a process of redesigning. When you came into the project, you realized that there were some missing pieces, some things that could get better in the game. So this really faced a challenge, right? So, Carlos, can you start with what were the challenges that you, as a producer of the game, faced with all the redesigning that David was proposing?
Oh yeah, well, probably first a little context on the big opportunity that we have when Skystone came to the picture, because we were going to have a real shot to learn about our mistakes and work on our egos, as David just mentioned. And it happened in our story because when Skystone and David Knowledge came to the picture, we already have been working on the game a lot, and we felt that we were very close to have the product. David knows about it, and we thought that we were ready at that point. And when Skystone came to the picture, and we really thank God about that, because now we see the change of the product and the opportunities that the product have right now. And just for a little context, we are based in El Salvador, which is one of the smallest countries probably in the world. But we have been working so hard in every size that we can with the product and trying people to get to know our game. And Alessandro did a great work doing that. And we were pitching the game as hard as we can. And then one day Skyson came to the picture, and and Alessandro won't let me lie here, we were very close to releasing the game because we were struggling on when to release the game and if it was going to be ourselves or with a publisher. So when Skyson came to the picture in the right moment, David started pointing out some things that could be better in the game. But I remember the words, and he was constantly repeating, not only me, but the whole team, hey, this is your game. You can do whatever you want with the game. I'm just giving you some advices based on my experience and everything that I have learned so far. as well as the Sky Zone team. And that was a big challenge actually, because all the responsibility and the decisions were on us. David or Skystone wasn't really pushing us to make that decisions. It wasn't us. Uh, but then that's the moment in our lives when we learn that lesson that just said it's like, okay, we think we had the game, but let's try these things. And something very similar as David described it, when we start taking away a few of the mechanics that were making our gameplay more complex, and more scripted that it should be, then we found out a new game and we said, hey, this is way much better than we expected, and we are trying these new things out. It was a whole new vision, but I think that probably the main challenge from our perspective, or from me as producer at Stoneboat Studio based in El Salvador, was realizing that our game probably wasn't ready as we used to thought. Uh, and then we start applying the lesson that David said. Hey, open your mind, listen to your audience, listen to your peers, listen to your publisher, listen to your teammates.
Carlos,
And yeah,
something that I think it would be very interesting for the audience is like, okay, David said, okay, with the first Diablo, I made like a voting station. And how about you? How did you do that inside? Because I mean, maybe some people in the team didn't like those changes, or they thought that it was like the best thing to do, not to do the changes. So how did that work out with the team?
okay, well, you first probably uh, you have to understand how the idea of the last friend came out. And though we are a small team, we run like a small little contest inside the studio to see what idea were going to pursue. And from that little contest, two persons make a pitch, and we say, "Hey, that sounds interesting. Let's pursue that idea." And so it was already like a voting thing when the last friend uh, came to the production pipeline in Stonebook. And change is always complex. So of course we have this like, oh no, but if you do those changes, uh, the game will not be anymore what it was. And I'm not gonna say that's not true, but because the game is not anymore what it was, but it's better now. So as the Diablo story is the same. We discover a new game. We discover that some features or mechanics uh, were even better if we make some tweaks and or remove some of them, or change completely some of them. So to answer your question, change is always complex. I'm not going to say no. So, but giving the opportunity for us at least to try it and feel it and discover something new, I think that's probably the most important thing uh, for game production, for game design, because your assumptions will not be always correct. And sometimes you're going to be correct, but most of the time you will discover that you can do better, that there's a lot of ideas that you probably can pursue. Not all of them, especially in our case that we are small, we are indies, so we cannot pursue everything that we want. But whatever we want to pursue, we can try it out, and not just internally, but give it to others. Hey, Skystone, can you give me your feedback? David, please, can you test what we are, this new approach? And we were struggling at the same time trying to put the every test that we did in audience hands, and we always discovered that our assumptions were wrong, because we were saying like, oh, this is going to be so easy for the audience, and it turns it wasn't easy at all. And that people were getting so overwhelmed with our original game. But then it's when the whole team discovers, okay, change is difficult, and I think it doesn't matter where you are. Change is going to be difficult always. But once that you get through it, you realize that it was better. At the end of the path, it's something better waiting for you.
Okay, David, what about you? What's your version of this story? Because as Carlos was saying, you were like proposing to the team these changes. You were not like demanding those changes as the regular publishers do. They say this is the way that this must go. In your case, it was like the other way around, where you were suggesting the changes to try out the changes. So, talking about the last friend, what is your version of this story of this redesigning situation?
Yeah, I think that. Well, I think that I'm a pretty good. One of my powers, I guess, one of my superpowers, is the ability to determine what's kind of wrong with games. It's something that I've been able to do for a very long time, and so it just kind of comes naturally to me. I can point out some issues with things quite often, and so when I was playing the game, I think that the thing that was like a misconception on my part is that I had thought that, like, the one thing that comes to mind is that, like, I wasn't rescuing enough dogs. Like, it was just like, I thought there were going to be lots of dogs in this game, and there weren't a lot of dogs. And so, I didn't feel like there was enough. Like, I wasn't getting rewarded enough. I didn't feel like I was accomplishing anything. And so those were, I think that was some of my initial feedback. Plus, I'm really bad at games, and so when I can't complete anything, then that's usually a test for the kind of, like, I would say, more of a general audience, kind of old man audience, of whether or not I can play something. It's funny when we. I think it's come full circle. When we were making Diablo, one of our goals was that this thing that we came up with, which was, it sounds bad, but it was my mom test. And my mom, back in the in the early '90s, she was not a very good computer user, and so we had this thing. It's like, hey, if my mom can play this game, then we're gonna have a lot of people that can play this game. And so that was, now it's, hey, if Dave can play this game, I've become the test case. If Dave can play this, then a lot of people can. So I think that that kind of test of being able to get through the game and stuff, and the challenge factor, I think that a lot of people don't realize as game designers that they become really good at. Oh, my cat is attacking here. She's shaking my camera.
Yeah, he listened about dogs in
yeah, exactly. Yeah, she's
Yeah, he
like,
heard you
hey, we're
saying that
talking
you
about
love
dog.
dogs.
You're talking about dogs. What about
yeah.
me? So, like, I think that that being able to play through the game, you become very good at a game when you're making a game. That's one of the things that I think that people don't realize. Like, they become experts at playing their game. Not only that, they play it in a way that they expect to play it, and that also doesn't happen. Like, people will do weird things that you never expected. So you end up, usually, when you're testing the game and you're playing the game and stuff, you know what to do. You know how to maximize everything. And so you become just this amazing expert at it, whereas somebody else, like, doesn't know anything. So that I always feel like I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of a player that's playing something for the first time, and making sure that they can get through it. Because really, honestly, in the end, the point of a game is to win. Right. So, like, if there's no chance at winning, like, if they just get discouraged after, oh my God, it's so hard, and I'm like on the 7th level or something like that of 50, like, there's no way I'm going to get through this game, and they just get discouraged and move on to something else because there's 8 zillion games out there. So we want to keep people engaged. We want to give them rewards. We want them to kind of like have an ability to get through it and enjoy themselves. And I think that people really are enjoying The Last Friend now.
Yeah. So, David, one take from that would be like thinking a little bit more about all the metagaming elements that
Right.
the game can have, right? Because I think that when you are the developer, and as you said, you are like you are in God mode, right?
Right.
You know how to use all the resources. You never
No,
lose.
and you're always assuming that people will do as you do,
Right.
and they don't, and they simply don't do that way. And in our case, so when we tested the game, we used to do it with close friends, but we started observing, not just listening what they were saying, because they always were saying, "Oh, your game is very cool and it's amazing," and all those kind of things, but they were not able to pass even second level. So we, but the game was cool, and then we started making the changes on pacing and difficulty that David suggested, and people went through the game further than second level. They get to level 12, and they were saying the same. The game is cool. The last time I was very overwhelmed. I didn't want to say anything that time, but now I'm enjoying your game. I don't want to stop. So okay, you wasn't being really honest to me.
Yeah, and you know, when David was talking about her his grandmother, it reminds me of this stream I watched like 2 days ago. There was this girl playing The Last Friend, and you know that part where you have the barrels that have to explode. You know what she did? She threw the barrels to the RV.
Yeah, you would
So she
never
was
expect
making
that.
it yeah, she was making it a little bit more difficult, and she was always like throwing them back. So, so these are the sort of things that you never, as a developer, would think that could happen in a game.
Yeah, yeah, it happens all the time.
Yeah, it happens all the time. Okay, now one more question, guys. Uh, I think we'll finish the session with David. So, Carlos, uh, what advice would you give indie developers from Latin America about development in general?
Well, first, probably in my indie shoes, you have to scope your capabilities from the very beginning, uh, because you have to know what you are going to be capable to do with the time that you have, and the very limited budget that you will have being indie. So probably scope is one of the key things. But then you have to discover your game as soon as possible, because scope will always be changing, and you will always want more and want more mechanics, more pretty, more levels, more characters. You when you're developing, you will always want more. A game will never be finished. And I remember the tweet that it's really in my mind all the time, that David said, "Hey, uh, producing a game or developing a game, it's really hard. I mean, really, really hard. But finishing the game, it's almost impossible." And that's true, because as producers, as developers, as artists, your game will not be, will never be good enough for you. You will always want more, and you will always watch for things to make better and change. So you have to discover the game and test it out with the audience, and hear it. Really, I think that iteration is one of the most important. Not just be iterating uh, on your development plans, but also include in your iterations the audience, because that's the way that you're really able to discover, hey, my game is really working. People is getting fun or frustrated or overwhelmed, and is never actually able to win. And and because they don't win, they don't see all the content that I have. In our case, it was second level, so all the other content further that second level, people wasn't or was not being able to watch it at all. So probably that's my advice from my indie perspective: scope well, but discover your game including your audience in your iterations, and your scope will change, but keep an eye on it always. Uh, don't make it too big, based on your capabilities and what you can develop on your time and budget. But discover your game, test it out, and be open to hear, and you have to work on your ego for that. There's no other way to do it.
Okay, and David, a final question that is related to advice to indie developers, but we are also here in this stream of Unidos Online, where we have people from different backgrounds, different walks of life. So, but they are like interested to get started in the industry, in the video game industry. We have people watching Unidos Online that who are streamers, developers, people that come from the marketing, from animation. What would be, so there would be two questions. What is your advice for indie developers in general? How to get started? And if you want to get started in the industry, but you are not a developer, what would be some piece of advice for these two groups of people?
Uh, well, I'll tackle the second one first. The people that want to get into video games, I give the same kind of advice all the time, which is if you want to make video games, you got to actually make video games. Like dreaming about doing something and doing something are very different. So if people say, "Hey, I want to be a writer," then write a book. If I want to be a director, then make a movie. You know that like you got to start doing something in order to actually become good at it. And that means practice. That means doing it over and over and over again. It's the to become an expert at something, it's supposed to be, I don't know, 10,000 hours or something like that before you become an expert at it. So getting into a place where you're actually working on doing something, becoming better at it, and actually practicing and doing it, that is important. I think that, so if you want to get into the industry, find other people that are through school or other people that are online. There are lots of places online that you can meet with people that run game jams and things like that, and start practicing, start making things to make it, to give yourself an exam, to give yourself a start. Then you can show that off to other developers, then go out and try and find a job and say, "Hey, look, I made these other things, and I've got some experience," and that kind of stuff really does help. Plus, sometimes you can meet the right people and set up a company and make a game and get some funding. So that like it does happen, and so I think that's if that's what you want to do, that's a good start for the indie devs that are out there. I think that there are a lot of different lessons to be learned, a lot of different ways that you can go about it. But I think that Carlos was saying it, correctly. I think that finding your game, deciding what it is that you want to do, how is it different than everything else out there? Those are important things. Like going out there and saying, "Hey, we're just going to make a clone of this particular game, this really popular game." For instance, this is a good example. Like Super Mario came out. Oh my God, I'm really dating myself now. And like there were 10 zillion Super Mario clones, and it's like, well, why do you think that that's going to be more popular, right? Like, not only that, I mean, I guess an example a little closer to modern times is World of Warcraft came out, or even whatever League of Legends came out, and everybody came out with these clones. They all came out with the same kind of game. And it was like, well, why do you think that the team that is making tons and tons and tons of money, that you're going to have a game that's better than what they can do? And not only that, they're already leading. Like, you're going to have something so much better that you're going to take audience away from them. So imagine who your audience is going to be when you're creating something, and finding, and maybe hopefully finding a new audience, right? That, like, finding an audience that would be, this is a different type of experience than what people are used to or have experienced before. And I think those are important things to keep in mind when you're trying to find something new to do.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you guys. It was a pleasure to be with you this morning. And I hope all the Latino community can learn a little bit more about game designing, thanks to your experience, Carlos, with David Brevik. And obviously, we have tons to learn from David. Thank you for the opportunity, David. Thank you for sharing your knowledge with you. It's really, really important for us. And thank you for believing in Latin America.
My pleasure. And yeah, I really do. I think it's great that, like I've said before, getting those different voices than we're used to, getting different experiences out there from different cultures and different perspectives is just vitally important. And I love to see that and love to support that. And I'm excited about the future there.
Yeah, and there's just one thing that I forgot mentioning is that you also working with a Brazilian game.
Yes, that's true.
So yeah,
Yes.
Tyson has 2 Latin American titles in his
Yes.
portfolio.
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, guys, so it was a pleasure being with you, and everybody, thanks for stopping by in this stream. We'll see you around.